The genius who never got there. The Diener tragedy. In the silence of history that time hid, echoes the name of a star that Brazil lost. Diener, the genius, who floated on the ground. He made the ball a poem in constant rise. He danced on the lawns like someone who had no weight, with the lightness of a dream and the poison of a desire. Bold as Garrincha, refined like a king. But his fate, cruel, pulled him off the tide. In the fields of Rio and Sao Paulo it shone. But it was in the south that his name really echoed. In Vasco and Lusa he left deep marks. But it was only the beginning of fruitful journeys. There were dribbles that mocked physics and logic, and sprints that hurt defenses in a tragic way. A rare talent, maybe just one per generation. But time, merciless, cut his ascension. He died young, like a myth that had no epilogue. And he left only questions on the trail of his symbol. Who would Diener be if the road didn't betray him? A new Zico? A Romario? A Pelé that appeared? There are ghosts hanging over football. And Diener is one of them, brilliant and fatal. A breath of art reaped in an instant. A comet with no trail, a distant genius. He was born in Sao Paulo, between alleys and alleys, where the scream of the ball echoes like a soap opera. Son of a time when one dreamed of slippers, Diener learned early to be shadow and scourge. On the street, the asphalt was a stage and a trap. But he floated, made art on the trail. The ball didn't run away, it was an extension of your foot. And each dribble was a verse of pure tide. No luxury, no money, no promise or godfather. He made pure talent his own way. While many got lost in the gray of the quebrada, he painted the erased journey with colors. Still a boy, he caught Lusa's attention. A Portuguese thirsty for light and muse. There he began to write his destiny. Between worn-out boots and a crystalline future. I didn't talk much. I let the game speak. And what he said, no one else redoes. He was bold, he was light, a rebel of the ball. A prodigy without breaks, without fear of school. I dribbled boredom, hunger and concrete, with spins and fints in a direct rhythm. Soon it became a promise, headline and hope. The golden boy with the soul of a child. If you're enjoying this dark story, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more hidden truths from football's shadow side. When he went up to the professionals, the stadium vibrated. Caninda witnessed a lightning that passed. Shirt 10 on the back, soul bigger than the club. Diener emerged as a thunder that is never diluted. The crowd went crazy with every subtle touch. It was an urban ballet in the fields of Brazil. In a modest team, he was the rare jewel. The impossible to contain glow in the face. With only 19, it was already drawing attention. Not only for talent, but for conviction. I wasn't afraid of the defender or pressure. He was a boy in the body and a king in the driving. I dribbled by instinct, without calculation or rehearsal. With a domain that made time look like a rehearsal. He turned games, drew applause from rivals. And he painted football with brilliant tones. The press bowed to the new prodigy boy. Comparisons arose. Would he be a prodigy? Garrincha reincarnated? A new Edu? Or something even bigger that no one translated? But with fame comes the weight that no one teaches. And Lusa, small, couldn't hold this sin. Soon the giants arrived with contracts and Simons. They wanted the artist for new salons. In '94, fate made a loop. Diener put on the Maltese cross and went to Vasco. From Caninda to Colina, it changed scenery. But it kept the rare glow and the legendary touch. The fans expected magic at every touch. They wanted goals, dribbles, and a stock ace. And Diener delivered, even under pressure. With moves that looked like a spell or illusion. In Sao Januario, he enchanted crowds, leaving defenders in false directions. With electric starts, it became a nightmare. It was poison and poetry in the same ball. But the world charged more than football. They wanted posture, control and protocol. Diener, a rebel, didn't accept the mold. He played with soul, without a mask, no holster. The media, which used to applaud him in unison. He began to judge his undisciplined and harsh style. It was said that he was gruffi, that he lacked judgment. But maybe he was just an indecisive young man. Between training and interviews, I suffered in silence. I knew the world wanted a shaped idol. But he was wild, indomitable and raw. An artist in chaos, with brushes of Chul and Angu. After Vasco, he returned to the familiar home. To the Portuguese, to the warmth of the forgotten people. But something was different, less glow. As if the flame danced with less ardor. I was still an ace, I was still lightning. But there was a subtle fainting in the look. So much pressure, so many promises in the wind. They carried the body with a new torment. Diener didn't smile like he used to smile. He avoided headlines, he lived on the periphery. His football still enchanted the audience. But there was silence in the middle of the idea. The eyes shone less than before. And the field seemed less vibrant. Maybe he knew, unconsciously. That time charged him for his urgent art. Friends talked about plans and Europe. Of contracts, victories and new route. But Diener was too quiet. Like someone who saw something beyond mortals. He trained firmly, but without more euphoria. As if I lived in an empty count. It was the same talent, but something was missing. Like a genius who danced in the shade. It was April, cold dawn in Sao Paulo. The city's lights slept under a thin mantle. Diener in the car seat, quiet and serene. Without knowing that fate prepared the poison. The car slid down a fatal curve. With a friend behind the wheel, on a banal route. But the road, treacherous, does not forgive slip. And in a second, life turned into a scar. The impact was dry, brutal, without forgiveness. Against a tree that cut the illusion. Diener's body was attached to the traitor belt. And death came without warning or rumor. Your friend survived, injured but alive. While Brazil plunged into an explosive morning. A young talent, at the height of the explosion. It fell without glory, without consecration. The newspapers stamped in letters of regret. Diener dies in accident. End of enchantment. Fans in tears, clubs in silence. The country stopped in a huge void. From Caninda to Maracana echoed the tragedy. A collective lament, a pain without strategy. Death, sneaky, stole the future. And left a void in the purest field. The next morning, Brazil woke up mute. A strange silence enveloped everything. On the radios, in bars, in the grey streets. There was only talk of Diener and his slow promises. The TV repeated his dribbles in slow motion. As if time wanted to make the pain slow. The images smiled, but the country cried. A genius is gone, and hope was bleeding. In Caninda, candles burned in rows. Fans in tears, children in the flags. The stadium became a temple of reverence and pain. The lawn, an altar of silence and flower. Players who were rivals, were now brothers. United by tears, speeches and hands. Portuguesa stopped, Vasco shut up. And even historical rivals were silent for a minute, without a show. It was as if Pelé had stopped shining. Or as if a comet refused to pass. Football has lost its early poetry. An artist silenced by an atrocious force. There was no time for complete idolatry. Only the genius's sketch in an incomplete frame. Diener became a myth without having been a legend. An erased star before the contention. If you're enjoying this dark story, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more hidden truths from football's shadow side. Time passed, but the absence remained. Like an unscored goal that the world waited for. Diener became a question without conclusion. An open wound in the soul of the nation. What if you had gone to Europe, shone in Madrid? What if you had worn the yellow one in Tokyo or Paris? What if you had played next to Romario and Bebeto? Would he be the hidden genius of the incomplete project? The technicians said it was a matter of time. To be national team shirt 10, in the temple. But death cut the plot in the middle. And only the shadow of other people's talent remained. The children who dreamed of their dribbles at recess. Now they drew angels in other people's notebooks. The idol left before becoming a statue. Leaving memories and a country in a hangover. Football followed, as it always does. But in each new star, something more was missing. No one dribbled like him, nor did he fly so light. Diener was rare art, a dance that is not written. In the album of the promises that Brazil lost, your name is the most remembered, the one that hurt the most. Because he died young, with his eyes on the future, and left a dark hole in the present. They say the car was flying on the marginal. The speed was more than normal. The steering wheel was in the hands of a friend. But in the death bench, the danger slept. Who was the driver? The oscillating version. Some said that the car drove. Others swore that he slept tired. A passenger at the sealed destination. The official report was dry, protocol. But the people wanted more than to explain. They wanted to know if there was drinking, imprudence, whether the tragedy was an accident or a consequence. Many claimed that the car was new, that there was a lack of skill or control of the people. But there was never imprisonment, nor punishment. Only questions hovering without a solution. The rumors came up like weed. Theories, conspiracies, neighboring guilt. Would they have tried to shut up the rebellious boy? Or was it just chance, acting like a foray? The friend who survived almost didn't speak. He closed himself in silence, and there he isolated himself. The family asked for peace, the press insisted. And Brazil didn't know what it saw. At first, it was mourning in each stand. But time, treacherous, erases even the most marked pain. The CBF was silent, without official tribute. As if Diener was just a banal name. No retired shirt, no plate on the lawn. Just the echo of a talent ignored by many. The selection, which courted him with discreet looks. Soon he pretended that he never wanted him among the complete ones. The federations turned their faces, continued playing. While the memory of the genius was fading. No tournament with your name, no minute of tribute. Only the emptiness and absolute forgetfulness. Brazilian football, so fast and cruel, turned Diener into an unfaithful footnote. While others became myths and statues, he was being buried between the dates and grievances. Even the Portuguese, who saw him bloom. It took a while to eternalize his way of life. And Vasco, where he shone with touches of art. He went on his way without looking at the part. This is how Brazil treats its quasi-heroes. Those who enchant early and leave fast. The country of the ball has a glass memory. And forget quickly who didn't become a title. Although the world has tried to shut up, Diener's brilliance insists on coming back. In the street dribbles, in the improvised touches. There are subtle echoes of the indecisive boy. Ronaldinho, Robinho, Neymar at the beginning. Everyone drank from the source of the same appreciation. Diener was draft of a new era. The pure artist that time worships. Even without titles or bowls on the altar. It was a reference for those who wanted to enchant. Players said, I want to dribble like him. Like someone who pursues the flight of a skin. And in slums, fields and streets without light, boys tried to follow his cross. Shirt out, ripped boots. But with the soul of an ace and enchanted legs. His name was whispered among the elders. With nostalgia in my eyes and serious regrets. If Diener had played another year. It was the phrase that burned like a cloth. He became a myth among those who love the game. A free spirit that was never prayed. Even forgotten by stadiums and trophies. It keeps floating above the skies. While the country cried on television. A mother buried her son, without protection. There were no cameras in his suffering. Just an eternal emptiness in every moment. She saw him leave boy, come back in a coffin. No medals, no glory, no explanation. The street boy, now it was silence. And the home became a temple of pain and hunch. The brothers don't talk much about that day. They prefer silence to melancholy. The room was untouched for months. As if he was going to come back from the setbacks. The boots, the posters, the ball saved. Everything smelled of unfinished memory. At every birthday, the absence screamed. And the sound of the TV only dug deeper. My son was different, said the mother. He dreamed big, even without having a train. He never got used to the cruel absence. Not even with the questions that time repels. She watches the games on the screen, without passion. And every time an ace shines in explosion, he asks himself silently, what if it was mine? But fate never responded. Diener became a symbol, not only of talent, but of the youth that is lost in the wind. A boy who dreamed of lawns and glory, who had his life interrupted before the story. In football, it's the myth of almost there, of the bright future that can't shine. An eternal promise, a frozen dream, a rare talent, always unfinished. In every corner, in every empty field, the memory of a dark laugh remains. What would it have been if the time were fair? If life had given him his bust? The shirt 10 who never wore the national team, who didn't hear the hymn with his heart, the boy who packed the ball in his foot, and he never saw the sun from his own sky. Diener is a shadow that dances in memories, the portrait of pain in several stories. Interrupted youth is its mark, a name that in history is never erased. And in the silence of the empty fields, your echo runs like cold winds. The boy who dreamed, but never got there. It is a living legend that time will not erase. In the hearts of the people, Diener became a myth, not always remembered for the blessed talent. It is the symbol of the dream that is undone, from the erased brightness before your turn. In the conversation circles, your name resonates, like a ghost that memory sings. He represents the dark side of the game, the price of fame and the weight of fire. Young people look at him with respect and fear, knowing that fate is a game so early. Diener is the flame that lit and disappeared, a subtle warning that no one translated. In soccer Brazil, so full of passion, he is the face of loss and disappointment, a shooting star that shone too fast, and left your trail in the deadly nights. Some still look for their essence in the ball. Others only see a tragedy that consoles. But everyone knows that he could be king, if death hadn't taken that law. Even if life was brief and cruel, Diener left marks that break the veil. In the touch of the ball, in the brightness of the look, there is something eternal that cannot be erased. He showed the world that talent is fire, that burns fast, sometimes without play. A young man who dreamed of dribbles and goals, that enchanted Brazil, leaving lighthouses. Your name echoes in the fields of earth, where boys fight against the war. War of poverty, lack of hope, but also of dreams that feed the dance. Diener was an example of someone who came out of nowhere. It showed that talent does not choose journey, but it was also a warning that life is fragile, and that the future can be such an agile thread. In the hearts of the people, he lives without end, a symbol of struggle, love, and riot. Your story inspires those who want to believe that the impossible can one day be reached. Although death silenced his voice, Diener's memory didn't know the was after. He is a flame that burns in every daring dribble, the genius that lives in every boy in love. And even if the world has forgotten your name, on lawns and alleys, he's still a man, the young man who didn't become king, but that reigns forever in the history of the law. In the intense glow of youthful talent, shadows of a hostile end are hidden. Diener, in the curve of life and the track, he paid dearly for the price of unforeseen fame. Soccer is a party, but it's also a torment, where haste doesn't measure suffering. Young stars that shine too fast, they disappear in deadly accidents. It's the price of glory, the weight of success, that sometimes turns into fear and stumble. Diener was an example, a blood lesson, how fragile life is, a tragic banner. The steering wheel accelerates, life oscillates, and the dream is lost in the hostile curve. Football doesn't teach, it just charges the price of those who want to fly without knowing the recess. The clubs follow, the contracts fly. But who stops to think about what resonates? How many talents have already fallen like this? In the silence of the dawn, far from the end? Diener is a symbol of the talent that flies, but that sometimes falls into the good darkness. And Brazil cries, but doesn't change course. Because the game goes on, cold and unclean. The press ran to the urgent headline, exploring the pain, the evident shock. Diener was news, cover headline. But the cycle of fame soon escapes. Photos, phrases, speculations running. But who stopped to think about grief? among reporters and commentators in action. The pain became a spectacle, without compassion. The audience cried, felt the loss. But soon he sought new history and sale. The talent became a fragmented memory. In the yellow pages of the deleted story, the newspapers forgot, moved on, as if life were indifferent. And Diener's name was suspended. Between glory and dense silence, the magazines celebrated new stars, and the longing was in discreet corners. The press, hungry for news. He didn't keep the echoes of the fatalities. But in the hearts of many, there was tears, a mute scream, a lot of regret. Diener, the legend who was never a legend. It still echoes in the memory of contention. On Portuguesa's lawns, her first home, Diener shone, the promise emerging. The club felt the the deep loss. A sad silence that still floods. The teammates cried, the team stopped, and the crowd, in tears, singed the name. In Caninda, the stands were empty, marked by their moves and joys. At Vasco da Gama, hope has grown. With Diener on the field, the team flourished. But the tragedy broke the magic. He left a cold scar in the club. Tributes came up, but they were too few, as if time was erasing the signals. Football continues, but memory falters, and Diener's name in history fluctuates. The clubs continue, but the emptiness persists. In the hearts of the fans who still insist. The memory of the star who left so early. It's an eternal mark, a non-secret mourning. Thus, between goals and silences it was made. The story of a talent that never felt. Diener lives in the fields and in the mind. A beautiful ghost, an absent talent. Diener is a shadow that surrounds the stadiums. A ghost that crosses the days and the reports. It's not just a name, but an absence. That weighs on the chest, brings back memories. Brazilian football carries on your chest stories of glory and also of spite. Diener is the symbol of the almost achieved, of the interrupted dream, of the quiet talent. In the conversation circles, your name appears. Between sighs, longings that don't fall asleep. He is the portrait of what he could be. An erased glow before growing. The young man who never wore the yellow one. But it lives forever in the petty memory. Diener is the warning that few want to hear. That life is fragile, that you can run away. His legacy is the silence of the empty fields. The memory in corners, in late verses. A mute scream that echoes endlessly. In the soul of football that he loved like that. In the silence of the night, the name echoes. Diener, the boy that death blesses. With a ball at my feet, a flying dream. That never reached the top, but shone with fervor. Life is a game that doesn't always win. And time is a judge that never comes. Diener danced on the edge of the precipice. A rare talent, a young artifice. His last dribble wasn't on the lawn, but in the curve of life, sealed destiny. And football cries, but soon forgets. The boy who shone, but the world doesn't deserve it. In every field, in every street and alley, your memory lives on, even without a soap opera. It's the voice of those who dream, the contained cry. Of the talent that left, of the interrupted game. He is a symbol of beauty and pain. Of brief brightness, love and color. Diener, eternal in every throw and run. It's a living legend in the forgotten story. And as long as the ball rolls on any floor, your spirit will follow in constant tension. Because in the heart of ball lovers, Diener is a flame that never goes out or desolates. May this video be a final tribute to a boy who died before the ideal. On the dark side of football he shines. An eternal lighthouse in the shimmering shadow. If this story moved you, leave a like to keep these legends alive. Comment your thoughts about Emiliano Sala's tragedy, and don't forget to subscribe. This is just the beginning of football's darkest secrets.